Yes.
Okay, is that online?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that using batteries?
Yeah, give me a card.
Apple vodka from Washington State. I have a feeling you might need some after a long day of interviewing.
Sorry?
Can I get a picture of you holding it up?
Absolutely. Feeling like pushing a product I don't even know about.
Well, you have to tell me what you think of it. Yeah, give me my card. I have. You can either tell me your thoughts at either at Comics Bulletin or at today's Consent.
All right, I will. So, and I didn't get where you're from.
I'm Aaron from Comic Hero News.
Comic Hero News?
Hi, Kai with Cox.
C-O-X?
X, yes.
X-X.
You know, as soon as I said that, I could
She's blushing.
I know.
You can't say Cox without blushing?
I actually did. I can say it multiple times.
Now, and you are you guys?
We're online.
All right. All this morning, I selected exactly 2 print reporters. And so newspapers are really dying off.
I had an interview earlier with the guy who wrote a book about the history of Superman, and we're talking about the exact plot, not exact issue. He worked for the Boston Globe for like 25 years, and now he's off writing books, supporting them at Comic-Con because it's more work.
I have this romantic notion of journalism because of movies like The Front Page, Jimmy Olsen at the Daily Planet. I was a copy boy at Associated Press for about 6 weeks when I was in college. And like I say, thank you, I had visions of a newsroom. Stop the presses, Chief! I got a story that'll set this town right on its ear! And of course, when I actually did the job, it was like getting people's lunch orders, sweeping the floor, literally cutting copy. It was AP down on Flower Street in Los Angeles. So there's something about journalism that intrigues me, but it's interesting to see how it's changed now. In many ways, it's much more democratic because you can break in as a blogger and prove your writing ability as a calling card to go up the chain and go wherever you want. You guys have specific questions, or I just blather on with a monologue?
Well, can you give us start off with just telling what you're doing with the World of Heroes? Because not all of us were able to make it to the panel.
Well, that's interesting because I don't know really what I'm doing with Stanley's World of Heroes. It was interesting. None of you were at the panel?
I was there.
Okay. What was interesting to me was I heard actual people talking about what they're going to do. The Star Wars crafts lady, Peter David, the very talented writer, the reality show girl with the stuff sheep and so forth. Because when I went in with Boogaloo, they can realize that this guy, if he's on the radio, there's never going to be any dead air. He will just, like the Energizer Bunny, I'll just keep talking. So I'm not worried about that. I said, if we had call-in, I would be much more happy than just interviewing people because I would love to be an enabler for what people want to see or hear. Because I'm interested in what they're interested in. One aspect of this that is appealing to me is that I really am a fan. I mean, it's like I did Comic Book the Movie and used it as an opportunity to interview Ray Harryhausen, Stan Lee, Hugh Hefner. I mean, that's a stretch to get Hugh Hefner into the movie. But, I wanted to go up to the mansion and hang out with Playboy bunnies. And we hit it off. I did my research. He said to me,
Did you do research on the Playboy bunnies?
No, I did my research on Hugh Hefner because he said, when I asked him, the very first question was, most people don't realize that you actually wanted to be a cartoonist. And he was shocked because it was true. Because if you really took the time, this was before was it before the internet? I didn't use the internet. I, went to the libraries.
It's like 2004. So.
Yeah, so it was around,
but still kind of in its infancy, not nearly as developed.
Yeah, exactly. But what impressed him was he said 90% of the people that interviewed me, the first question is, did you really sleep with Marilyn Monroe? And then the second question is, do the stars on the logo really correlate to how many times you've slept with whatever centerfold is in the magazine? And in character is Don Swan, this high school teacher from Wisconsin. The whole interview, I never asked him one question about sex or women. It was all about nerd stuff. because I am one, and I'm unapologetically nerdy. I was more comfortable in the skin of Don Swan than I was in Mark Hamill, because if you play a character, this movie called Sushi Girl, it's one of the reasons I'm here at the con this year. They're screening Sushi Girl, which is this violent Tarantino-esque gangster picture. And I play this just horrible, heinous psychopath, sadomasochistic creep. And they put 25 extensions on my hair and horn-rimmed glasses. And what was great about it was when you look in the mirror, I disappeared. I was no longer responsible for my behavior. I could be that character, which was a great thrill for me. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone, too. It was like, I said, Jesus, can I do this? It's awfully violent. My kids are reading it thinking, please, it's not that violent. I guess, movies have progressed so far beyond me that I saw just the trailer to Saw, and I thought it ruined my life, because it got images into my head that I'll never get out, much less being able to see the whole movie. So I'm kind of a wimp that way. I love high violence. I think Psycho is one of the best movies Hitchcock ever made, but you never really see anything real.
Do you find it easier playing the Joker, even as sort of psychopathic as he is, because you don't physically do it?
Well, one of the things we hit on is that you're liberated because you don't have any sense of anxiety in terms of how you look. You completely can mind meld with the character. One thing I love about animation is you get cast and characters you'd never be considered for in live action. And ironically enough, when I asked the Sushi Girl people, how did you think of me to play this guy? And they said, well, we figured if you could do Psycho in animation, why couldn't you do it on camera? So that was the connection there. And it's, when I really admit to people how much satisfaction I've gotten over the years being the Joker, that really reveals what a colossal geek I am. Because I can't tell you how not only thrilled I was to be able to take on the legacy of a character that, let's face it, besides Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes, there's probably no villain that has a larger profile. Lex Luthor, maybe? So, and what was so funny is I was so sure that I wouldn't get cast because of my past as such a goody two-shoes in Star Wars. All that nervousness about an audition went away because I said, well, I'm not going to get it anyway, so I want to make them sorry that they can't hire me. Because I knew as soon as I left the room, they'd say, well, he was good, but it's too bad we can't hire him. Because, God knows, we put out a press. Do you think Michael Keaton as Batman created a furor in the fan world? Mark Twinkie Hamill as Joker is going to make him, just have a heart attack. And so I just let it rip, and I really had a good time, and I left. And I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, my agent called and said, they want you. I said, for what? And they said, the Joker. I said, oh no, I can't do this. The fan world are going to flay me alive. There's no way you can live up to how they hear it in their head. And then my friend said, plus, I wouldn't want to follow Jack Nicholson in anything. I said, oh, I didn't even think of that. I really got to get out of this. I said to them, how about if I play like Clayface or some character that's never been done before? Ratchagul or Dr. Hugo Strange or, I don't know, Two-Face hasn't been done. I'd like to do that. That's, because Joker's a little too high profile. I was especially looking at characters that were in the comic books that had never been done in the Adam West or the Tim Burton or the Joel Schumacher. This is before Christopher Nolan. But what are you going to do? I painted myself into a corner. And I remember driving the first time I was going to record it. I couldn't remember what I'd done. I said, how did I laugh? Because one thing, I had just come off the road I had done Amadeus for, 6 to 8 months on the road and then 6 months on Broadway. And once you get into a run that long, just to keep yourself from getting ultra bored, one of the things that you had to do as Mozart was startle Salieri with a horrible laugh that didn't fit with someone that would write such heavenly music. Peter Shaffer described it as sort of a donkey bray. I don't know. I played around it. I did snorts. I would play. I said, tonight I'm going to do Renfield from Dracula. Just to not get bored. Sometimes I get notes from the stage manager going, getting a little out there with the laugh, reel it back in, I do Jerry Lewis. Why? Anything just to keep myself from going cuckoo, because you're doing 8 a week. I mean, you turn into Mr. Machine if you don't watch yourself carefully. And so that was like the first thing I really auditioned for after Amadeus. And so I had a whole arsenal of laughs. And I thought, we really should use the laugh for the Joker as almost like a weapon or almost like music. I don't want it to be the same laugh every time. It's got to really be colorful and affect his moods. I always remember Frank Gorshin saying, and he's my all-time favorite villain. Frank Gorshin is the Riddler. Such energy and that maniacal giggle. He said, it's not that the Riddler laughs, it's what he laughs at, which is not what you and I would laugh at. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. So I used to go through my script and mark where he would laugh. Sometimes I tried to go for a real long time and not laugh at all. But it's been just a joy. I mean, it's because I loved it so much as a kid. I mean, I loved the Batman comics so much and the TV show. And like I say, once I got over my fear, because I was on the highway driving to the studio going, I can't remember how I laughed. I'm sure in LA, that, Mom, check that guy out. It's no big deal in Los Angeles, but I didn't realize they had tapes. They call them reference tapes. So when I went in, I was like terrified. Number one, that I'd bitten off more than I could chew, that there was no way I could satisfy the fans, and that I couldn't remember what I did in the audition. Well, they played the tapes, and oh yeah. And I had to dub 6 because they changed actors. Another actor had played the Joker for the first 6 episodes. When they changed their minds, I had to go dub those shows. And the first time I actually met up with the cast was like in episode 7. And I'm still friends with them today. I love them all. Kevin Conroy is one of the nicest people in show business. He's my Batman. And I've never done Joker without Kevin except one time. A animation school in Florida, the graduating class, was going to do a Lego Batman as their final class project. And my agent said, you get scale, but you turn the money back to charity or back to the school, and you have to get a waiver from SAG because it's non-union. And they said, well, I always feel like you should try and help academic world. They need all the help they can get. They said, yeah, it's a good cast. Commissioner Gordon is Dick Van Dyke. Really?
Wow.
Because Bob Hastings is my Commissioner Gordon, and he does a tremendous job. I said, well, that's interesting. And then I wish I could tell you all the cast members, but when I walked in to do my scene, they hadn't told me this. I just assumed it was Kevin. I walk in, and sitting in a chair in a Hawaiian shirt is Adam West. And I just went, oh my God, because I was like 12 or 13 when the TV series was on. So I was still like I went reverted. It's like when I met one of the Beatles. I thought if I try and talk, I'm going to cry like a little girl. When I met George. I met George and Ringo. And not at the same time. But what I'm saying, when I walked in, it was Adam West. I thought, oh no. I don't know that I can do it in front of him. When I was recording, I had to have my hand up here to block him off. He said, He is just wonderful. And I've been watching them again because they're back on the hub. And they brought back the animated series as well. And it gets a lot of bad lip service from fans that say, oh, it's not tough and Dark Knight and it's silly, and it's a lot more accurate of the comic books at that time than they would like to admit. In fact, if you pick up a comic book from 1966, you'll see, meanwhile, in an abandoned factory, at stately Wayne Manor, it was too close for comfort, really. Because Batman had drifted away from being a Dark Knight, and he really was saying, nice work, old chum, to Robin. So, and I think, Adam doesn't get the credit he deserves for the subtlety of his. He's straightforward and yet highly comedic at the same time in his underplaying. Even when he's climbing a wall, he'll turn and lecture Robin about his duty as a civil servant. It's your duty to vote. I mean, nobody could have pulled it off. Have you ever seen the screen test for the other guys that were up for it? It's no question, it's Adam. And like I say, I just think he's one of my favorite childhood performers. And he meant a lot to me. So, and like I say, just telling you how much this means to me immediately outs me as a huge, whatever you want to call it, geek, dork. I'm just a comic book fan.
So the obvious question is, when you found out you were going to be cast in this big science fiction movie, was that like geek heaven to you?
Well, you know what's interesting was I got the part before I read the whole script, so when I sat down to actually read the script, I only read 7 pages. And when I started reading this thing, floating cars and light swords and robots and Dr. Doom, I mean, oh my God. I could not believe my eyes. Yeah, it was like, I mean, that combined with the fact that I was going to meet with and work with Sir Alec Guinness, get out of town. I thought I died and gone to heaven. Because I loved all those Harryhausen things, you know? I mean, when I saw that there was a giant hand, there was a giant rancor hand. Right. In one of them, I go down a pit and there's this big monster in the basement. My son, I have a picture of him sitting there. He's like a year and a half, you know, with his little action figures, sitting in the rancor hand. And I thought, this is the closest I'll ever get to being Fay Ray, you know, to be in a giant hand,
Right.
wriggling and screaming. I don't think it's even in the final print. I don't think the rancor. I think they built the hand actually for him to eat one of the big guards. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was like being paid to go play in your backyard like when you were 9 years old. So you be the sheriff of Nottingham, you be Friar Tuck, and I'm going to be Robin Hood. And that's how you spent your day, playing in a fantasy world. And that's what it was to do those movies, no question about it. I remember as we went on, Guinness had real misgivings about the merchandising Sir Alec did, because he never forced. None of us could anticipate that, you know, it'd be electric toothbrushes and sleeping bags and underoos.
What misgivings before or after the movie blew up?
After, because when it became what it became, he just thought it was way too much. And who's to say he was wrong? I mean, at first I was thinking, well, it's supply and demand. So I didn't mind the toys being at Toys R Us. When we got our own section at Toys R Us, I said, hey, you gotta reel it back. I have irate parents coming up to me saying, my kid spends all his money. Like I'm the one in charge of it.
Right.
Like I have anything to do with it. Yeah.
What is it like for you seeing, you know, still your face basically on books that have been written, you know, 20, 30 years after, so the character's still living on, but you're not really part of it anymore.
Exactly.
But it's
well,
you.
I'm not. And it's not really fair because we made that agreement before they knew what it was going to grow into. And I think as it grew, possibly our participation or non-participation could have grown. You know, those are non-union movies. We get nothing from home video or DVD or VHS. I'm talking about tens of millions of dollars. So when we go, wow, if I'd been one of the Harry Potter people, and once they figured out how all this supernova movie works, we were pioneers. So we got bupkis, basically. We got a little piece of the movies when they were in the theaters. And I don't want to really complain, because I mean, I didn't get into this business for money anyway. And we made millions, we just didn't make tens of millions. So you don't want to sound like, oh, poor you. You know, the reason I say any of this is because people have a really bad notion of what we are worth. We got audited by the IRS because they wouldn't believe when I told People Magazine that, you know, our cloth is way overestimated, and they wrote, he's worth a cool $10 million, of course, which is so far from the truth. We got audited because basically what we paid the IRS didn't match up with $10 million. So when they came in, they saw the facts, but it was People Magazine. You don't expect them to be actually factual. It's like Fox News, It's not an actual news organization. It's just a reasonable facsimile thereof.
Say that about People Magazine.
People Magazine and Fox News.
Fox News, I agree.
I mean,
I gotta go.